All right, and welcome into the other side here. This is the beginning of the educational series on long-term care planning and insurance. So first and foremost, let me just say congratulations on taking a step towards learning more about how to plan, which options might make the most sense for you, and I really applaud you for really entering in your name and your email address to get this free video series. Sim said years ago that an educated consumer is our best customer, and I would probably say that's something we strive for here at the LTC Partnership as well. I want to make sure that you have enough information and enough education where you feel empowered, where you feel you actually understand, what long-term care is, what options you have, and what might be best for you. So by a little background here, I'm your host. My name is Michael Fitzpatrick, and I'm the president and co-founder of the LTC Partnership. I've been specializing in long-term care planning for about 12 years now, actually, since 2001. And I just started doing this right out of college. I can tell you that the last decade and change of my life has been extraordinary. The experiences I've had, the learning experiences, the clients, the interaction, and my fundamental, the sector that I really operate within, the fundamental goal of that is to help people understand about the issues of longevity. So as the email suggested before you filled out your name and your email address to get in on this other side, there's 5 different emails that you're going to get from me with 5 separate little videos, and the compilation of those is going to give you everything you need to know about long-term care. So without further ado, let's jump right into this thing. Section number 1, about longevity. So understanding demographic trends and being ahead of the curve is really important when it comes to planning. And longevity is an issue that I don't think that you really need me to tell you that it's all around us, right? Everywhere we look, everywhere we turn, we keep hearing more and more about the issues of aging, the issues of longevity, how to do it better, how to do it more gracefully, how to do it with dignity. But the fact of the matter is that longevity is all around us right now. Now, why is that? Why is this becoming a bigger issue? Well, we have this group called the baby boomers. And for those of you that understand this chart, they were born between 1946 and 1964. And there was an estimated 78 to 80 million baby boomers that were born during that 15 to 20 year period. So that's really impacted many industries along the way. And this is a great chart I got from a mentor of mine years ago. And he basically says that the baby boomers are like watching a basketball travel through a garden hose. And there was a tiny little company back in the 50s called Gerber that nobody had heard of before. And they were strategically positioned just ahead of this basketball, and out of nowhere, within about 20 years, they sold 1.6 billion jars of baby food. Then the basketball moves through, and you had Mattel and Hasbro, all these board games, Candyland, Monopoly, and so on for these kids to play with. Then McDonald's and Dairy Queen and KFC, and then all of a sudden, these boomers started turning 17, and therefore they got their driver's license. So which industry really took off at that point in time? Of course, the automobile industry. So Ford and Chevy and Oldsmobile, they had about a 20-year run because there was about 8 to 10,000 people turning 17 every single day for almost 2 decades. Then all of a sudden, it was the real estate boom. The boomers had moved home, and the parents kept saying, if you live under my roof, you have to abide by my rules. So they all moved out and pursued the American dream and became homeowners. And so therefore, the people to this day are still talking about the real estate boom of the 70s and 80s. Well, guess what? Now the basketball has traveled all the way through to the other side, and we're now dealing with issues of longevity. So this chart right here is very fascinating. On the bottom left-hand side, you'll see that that's really when we enter into this world, when we're born. And we have a complete and utter dependency for everything in our life, financially, physically, emotionally, everything that we have. But along the way, we have a strong desire to attain a level of independence. And we actually strive to attain that over and over and over again until we finally achieve it. And then we ultimately achieve independence. Everybody, well, not everybody, but most people achieve this level of independence financially, emotionally, physically, and so on. But what happens along the way is that due to unforeseen circumstances, due to health issues, due to accidents, we lose the ability to take care of ourselves and we become dependent again. But the irony is that we never lose the desire to maintain our independence as long as possible. So when people end up in care situations, they still have a strong desire to maintain their independence. It's just that the body or the vessel that carries them around, may have changed or been altered. So it's not that the desire goes away. It's just that sometimes things happen that really take us back into a dependency role. Now, so why has long-term care become the subject of the day? Right? You're hearing about it more today than ever before. Well, it's because people don't die. Well, we all know people die, right? But we're not dying of the same types of illnesses and conditions that would have killed us in the good old days. I mean, think about it. Take a trip down memory lane. 50 years ago, if somebody had a heart attack or cancer or a stroke, generally, what happened to those people? Exactly, they passed away. Well, how about today? Our chances of surviving those death sentences, quote unquote, are exponentially greater, largely due to technology, medical advancements, prescriptions, health and wellness initiatives, tobacco crackdown. So all these things they put into effect about 30 or 40 years ago are actually working, for better or for worse. Let's take a little quiz here, though, and let's just test you and see how you're doing with some of these numbers. Back in 1935, all right, any guesses as to what life expectancy was? You can jot down some numbers right now, or you can say it out loud to yourself. But the actual numbers are 58 for men and 62 for women. Now, something else happened in 1935, and the government rolled out a program that was referred to as Social Security, still is. The age that you had to be when they first rolled this program out back in 1935 to collect your first paycheck was still 65. And when you think about that, the average person lived till about 58 or 62. So they were already 7 or 3 years already dead, predeceased, before they got their first check on average. So in 1935, there was about 50 people contributing into the system for every one person that was collecting on the back end. Well, let's fast forward to today. What do you think the average life expectancy is of women today? Well, actually, the number is 86 years, I say, young. This is a picture of my roommate from college, Jay, on the left-hand side there with the yellow shirt. This is his grandmother, Flash, who actually was doing a headstand at our college graduation up at Fairfield University. And Jay had told us for years about Flash and the fact that she could do this. Nobody believed him, so finally when she showed up, she was basically there screaming to the world the vibrancy of her young age, still in her early to mid-80s. So this is how a lot of people still see themselves today, and they're not considered old yet. But the average female today lives till about 86 years young. Now how about men? The average life expectancy of men today. Jot down a number. What do you think it is? It's actually about 39. No, I'm totally kidding. It's actually closer to about 82. So the fact of the matter is that we're all living a lot longer than we were back in 1935. So don't you think that some things have changed in terms of what we should be planning for and how we have to plan, versus 50 years ago, given the fact that we're living so much longer and that the employer arena has changed so much? Albert Einstein has a great quote here, and he says, "It's become appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity." And we want to make sure that we don't do that. We want to make sure that we can actually age and die with dignity, peace, independence, and so on. So when this topic comes around, long-term care, people have a variety of different reactions. But really, I like to tell folks that the issue has more to do with perspective than anything else. And Norman Rockwell happens to be one of my favorite artists. And this is a painting he has called the Triple Self-Portrait. And he's about 70 years old when he's doing this painting. But he's seeing himself in the mirror and putting himself on the canvas as if he's about 50 years old all over again. So when I say this issue is about perspective, here's what I mean. Some people that you talk to say, I just don't like insurance companies. I just don't want to pay extra premium. I have no money right now. I'd rather kill myself. My kid will take care of me. It's not for me. It's never going to happen. And I'm not saying that this is right or wrong, but it's a perspective that I hear from one side of the coin. The other side of the coin are people who say, you know what, Michael, I've really worked hard, to accumulate these assets, and I'd rather not, spend them all on my care. I want to protect and preserve them as best as possible. And I don't want to become a burden to anybody that I love, but I do want to have choice and control and quality care. And quite frankly, I really want to have dignity and independence. And if there's a small price attached to that to have that peace of mind in the form of a premium, then you know what? It is what it is. And so there are really two different camps that come to the table when it comes to this topic. And my first suggestion to you is figure out which of those two camps you're part of. Are you part of the group that is looking for all the reasons why not having a plan is right for you? Because if you're looking for those reasons, there's plenty of them. Or are you the kind of person who's looking for all the benefits as to what having a plan would do for you and your family? So first and foremost, figure out which of those perspectives is yours. Some brief facts here that are extremely important is that there's about 15 million people right now who are currently receiving long-term care in our country. And the irony is that 82% of them are actually receiving care at home, or in some sort of assisted living versus a nursing home. Now, why do I say that's ironic? Well, because when surveyed, most people say that they think long-term care is for nursing homes. And as you can see here, a majority of care is not for nursing homes. In fact, nursing homes are placements. If you've ever been involved in an experience where somebody had to place a loved one in a nursing home, you would totally understand this is not a decision that people actually want to make. People don't always make it to a nursing home. They may have had care at home or assisted living for years before that, and then they may get placed into a nursing home for 6 months, a year, 2, 3, 4 years. But the other startling statistic is that also in survey, people think that long-term care is for old people. And the fact of the matter is that almost half of the people who need this kind of care right now are working age adults between the ages of 18 and 64. So Christopher Reeve and Michael J. Fox and Montel Williams, and you probably have stories of your own. But the fact of the matter is that it's not just for old people. You know, the reality is that most of the people that we talk to, when they're quote-unquote ready, is when they actually don't have health enough to qualify. And we'll talk about this in future slideshows here and future educational presentations. But you know, your money is not what buys this kind of insurance. It's actually your health. So don't wait until it's too late. Former First Lady Rosalynn Carter has a wonderful quote, and she says that there are 4 kinds of people in the world. There's those that have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those of us who will need caregivers. So let that kind of sit for a minute. I'm sure you fall into one of those 4 categories. And what we're dealing with right now as a nation are 2 issues. And they're very, very different, but also in the same category. So when it comes to long-term care, we're dealing with people who are in crisis mode. And then we're also dealing with people who are in the baby boomer category. So when we look at really what those 2 groups look like visually, it's kind of like the iceberg, right? So the people who are in crisis mode are the people who have benefited from increased longevity. They're the people who were kind of like the guinea pigs. And what we're seeing as an impact on the tip of the iceberg is that the federal government can't handle this risk, right? They cannot fund it. The states can't fund it. And it's ripping families apart financially and emotionally and physically as well. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. But what's upon us in the next 10 to 20 or 30 years is something that none of us can really forecast in terms of the magnitude of how much of an impact it's going to have on all of our lives. So when you have the people who are in crisis mode, they're trying to plan when there's no time to plan. And so for every person who needs care right there smack dab in the middle, there's probably about 3 to 5 people who are intimately impacted by that person's situation. A spouse, a daughter, a son, a coworker, a friend, a family member, a godson, a granddaughter. I mean, there's 3 to 5 people who are now pulled in to this situation. And then you have the baby boomers on the right-hand side. They're very uncertain about Social Security. They have no pension plans from employers anymore. They're probably going to have retirement for maybe 30 years if they're lucky. And right now they're providing 15 to 20 hours per week of uncompensated caregiving. So that's really what the impact is for a lot of these folks. Now, this is the conclusion of the first video here. We talked about longevity. The next thing that's coming to you tomorrow is what is long-term care versus what it's not, and then what options do you have. And then we're going to talk about how do you customize your insurance, the different features and programs, and then I'm going to give you exactly what nobody else is willing to give in this industry, which is a free idea of some of the costs, the sample premiums, and I'm not going to withhold any information from you. I'm going to give you exactly what you're looking for. So thanks so much for completing the first educational series presentation on longevity. Hope it was helpful, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.